Hello again in this video series that I am calling My Journey to God in a Very Secularized World. This should be video clip number 17. I would like to continue with speaking about this confusion and lack of prudence and overreacting and so on in this period, and not trusting totally in Jesus and Mary in this period. In this period with that only God can resolve, because you might say, like in English, the horse is already out of the barn. Only God can resolve this problem. So therefore you must be very docile in the hands of Jesus, and in particular his mother, who God has chosen to, in this period, to be the head of the purification of the church. It comes to mind also, for example, that as I said before, many people try to find a perfect group. Everything's gone bad, so I want to find a perfect group as I feel I am. And many groups like this, I talked about Minotella, and I'll talk about him again, but other groups such as Archivescovo Lefebvre, he was treated very badly and unjustly by his fellow bishops. And he broke away, and many people followed him who were looking for a hero to come and stomp the people who were stomping them. And so they joined up with him. It's a normal reaction, but it doesn't produce fruits. You know, it comes to mind also the French Revolution and the Russian Revolution. And in other words, after the French Revolution, you know, it was much worse after the French Revolution. Much worse. There were a few religious congregations, sisters, who were praying for the King of France, for his conversion. And you might read in some of my articles also in there, I might get back to it later, but you know, exactly to the day, 100 years before the outbreak of the French Revolution, Jesus gave a message to the King of France by way of Mary Alacoque, Saint Margaret Alacoque, to consecrate France to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. He didn't do it, and the kings after him didn't do it, and exactly 100 years after that was the French Revolution. And look at it very carefully. After the French Revolution, it was much, much worse. We thought, oh, we're finally going to free, we're going to kill these kings. It was worse. Why weren't there more, like those holy nuns, some of the few holy congregations were actually founded just to pray for the king? You know, or in the Russian Revolution, the same thing. After the Russian Revolution, it's much, 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 much worse in Russia. And even that, they spread their errors in the whole world. How many people say, I can't stand my wife or my husband, and they say the solution is to get away from them, divorce. The statistics show statistics show it's usually much, much worse afterwards. The statistics show it. And even the divorce rates on the second marriage is much higher than the first one. But we don't want to carry the cross of Christ that he gave us, which is the solution. It's the solution to true happiness. Look at Jesus on the cross. Look at all the saints. We don't want to follow the saints. We don't want to suffer, so we will take care of it ourselves, and we think the solution will be better, and afterwards it's worse, not only here on earth, but for all eternity. So here we are, you know, in this situation even the apostles, you think about it, even the apostles were hoping that Jesus Christ would free them from the Roman domination and stomp the people who were stomping them. But what example did Christ give us in this situation? What example did all the saints in the history of the church give us in this situation? Did Mary, the mother of Jesus, seek a hero who would free her divine son during his passion? Or did Mary totally conform to the will of God and consoled Jesus on the cross, and she became the Queen of Martyrs? Mary didn't run around and like so many groups today and says, you guys are bad. you guys are bad, you crucified my son, and like that. She was in silent suffering. Are we willing to follow the saints, follow Mary? I think a very good model in this period is exactly Mary at the foot of the cross. How many of us want to follow this model as the real solution for the purification of the church today? Our human nature, we prefer to cut off the ear of the high priest's slave, as St. Peter did, than to submit to the Father's will and to undergo the crucifixion. You know, I think about it also, for example, in the history of the church, what was the difference between the true reformers, the saints, and the false reformers of the Catholic Church? Which reformers produce truly good fruits for the church and for the souls, and which reformers produce bad fruits for the church and for souls? It takes time to recognize the tree by its fruits, because it takes time to, is this priest truly following Mary in humility, or is he a protagonist and he's going to straighten it out because he knows better? You know, unfortunately, the false reformers who lacked true humility and wisdom caused considerable damage to the church and to many misguided souls. As I said before, the first 3 centuries of the church, the true Christians, instead of resentment and revenge, they loved their enemies and prayed for them. And this was the real fruits that converted the whole Roman Empire. And this will be the same solution now. Those willing to suffer with Jesus and Mary in the crucifixion of the church in this period will be the real solution to the purification of the church. And they will be the true saints that will get to heaven. I'd like to also add here a good friend of Don Stefano Gobi. He, 2 weeks before Father Don Stefano Gobi died, they had celebrated a mass together, and they had about a half hour to wait for lunch, and so they went into the room and talked, and Don Stefano Gobi said to them, let's open the Blue Book, and I want to show you this message, that I think this message really puts it into a nutshell of what's going on today. And he opened the Blue Book, and he went to this message in the Blue Book, and it was October. It was a message of October 18th, 1975. And let me read this message to us, because Gobi was saying this is exactly what's happening today, and this is what we can expect. Listen to this message. Our Lady says, my adversary, she's talking about Satan, will one day think that he is celebrating a complete victory over the world, over the church, over souls. It will be only then that I will intervene, terrible and victorious, that his defeat may be all the greater when he is certain in his conviction that he has conquered once and for all. What is in preparation is so extraordinary that its like has never happened since the creation of the world. That is why everything has already been predicted in the Bible. The terrible struggle between me, the woman clothed with the sun, and the red dragon, we're talking about the book of Revelation, chapter 12, Satan, who has now succeeded in seducing many, even in the era of Marxist atheism, has already been foretold to you. The struggle between the angels, together with my children, and the followers of the dragon, led by the rebellious angels, has already been foretold to you. Above all, my complete victory has already been clearly foretold. Then she's talking to her priests. She says, you, my sons, have been called to live through these events. It is now the time for you to know this, that you may be consciously prepared for the battle. This is now the time for me to begin disclosing part of my plan. First of all, it is necessary that my enemy have the impression of having conquered everything, of having everything now in his hands. This is why he will be permitted to penetrate even into the interior of my church, and he will succeed in plunging the sanctuary of God into darkness. He will reap the greatest number of victims from among the ministers of the sanctuary. She's talking about priests and bishops. This will, in fact, be a time of great falls on the part of my beloved sons, my priests. She's talking about many priests and bishops will go to hell in this period, as also Our Lady of Garbandel, as I mentioned before. Satan will seduce some of them by pride, others by love of the flesh, others by doubt, others by unbelief, and still others by discouragement and loneliness. How many will have doubts about my son and about me and will believe that this is the end of my church? Priests consecrated to my Immaculate Heart, my beloved Son, priests consecrated to my Immaculate Heart, my beloved sons, whom I am gathering together for this great battle. The first weapon that you must make use of is trust in me, Our Lady. It is your complete abandonment to me. Conquer the temptation of fear, of discouragement, of sadness. Distrust paralyzes your activity and greatly benefits my adversary. And she finishes simply saying, be serene and joyful. Be joyful when she's prepared us for our martyrdom. You could read that in the Blue Book and at my website again if you want. You can find it there. May God bless you and Mary guide you.